Good morning, friends. Welcome. It is 6:33 Central Time, and you are live with me, West Tennessee Dave, here on Twitch. And maybe you're coming and seeing this later on a VOD, on YouTube, or on Twitch. Either way, welcome. Good to see you. Hope you're having an excellent day, and I hope this starts off your day well. Okay, let's see. What are we going to read today? We have a kind of a big section here to go through Numbers 28 through 36, but we're only going to be reading, I think, about 3 chapters again, and we'll be glossing over the rest, being that they're not stories, as we've been doing. So, last time we read a quick recap. Recap of what we talked about last time that was important. One, we heard about the daughters of Zelophehad, and we read an actual census numbering, which is why this book is called Numbers. And then we saw God kind of say to Moses, "Get prepared. You're gonna die, and this journey's gonna go on without you. The story is no longer gonna include you. And Moses said, well, they need a leader, so who to appoint? And Joshua was chosen. Okay, so that's where we left off. And after that, God summoned Moses again, and he started giving him more laws and instructions. And so I'm going to briefly go over a few of those. So there's instructions about the daily offerings, Sabbath offerings, monthly offerings, the offerings at Passover, the festival harvesting, the festival of trumpets offerings. So offerings at all these different basically holidays or festival days they have, the Day of Atonement offerings, Festival of Shelters offerings. So there were 3 festivals that the Lord commanded them to take part in each year, and when they do that, they are supposed to have offerings brought to the Lord. And then there's some rules about laws concerning vows. Now, let's get into what we are here to read today. Then the Lord said to Moses, on behalf of the people of Israel, take revenge on the Midianites for leading them into idolatry. After that, you will die and join your ancestors. So Moses said to the people, choose some men and arm them to fight the Lord's war of revenge against Midian. From each tribe of Israel, send 1,000 men into battle. So they chose 1,000 men from each tribe of Israel, a total of 12,000 men armed for battle. And Moses sent them out, 1,000 men from each tribe, and Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, led them into battle. They carried along the holy objects of the sanctuary and the trumpets for sounding the charge. They attacked Midian as the Lord had commanded Moses, and they killed all the men. All 5 of the Midianite kings, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, died in battle. They also killed Balaam, son of Beor, with the sword. Then the Israelite army captured the Midianite women and children and seized their cattle and flocks, and all their wealth as plunder. They burned all the towns and villages where the Midianites had lived. After they had gathered the plunder and captives, both people and animal, they brought them all to Moses and Eleazar the priests, and to the whole community of Israel, which was camped on the plains of Moab beside the Jordan River across from Jericho. Moses, Eleazar the priest, and the leaders of the community went to meet them outside the camp. But Moses was furious with all the generals and captains who had returned from battle. Why have you let all the women live? He demanded. These are the very ones who followed Balaam's advice and caused the people of Israel to rebel against the Lord in Mount Peor. They are the ones who caused the plague to strike the Lord's people. So kill all the boys and all the women who have had intercourse with a man. Only the young girls who are virgins may live. You may keep them for yourselves. And all of you who have killed anyone or touched a dead body must stay outside the camp for 7 days. You must purify yourselves and your captives on the 3rd and 7th days. Purify all your clothing too, and everything made of leather, goat hair, or wood. Then Eleazar the priest said to the men who were in battle, "The Lord has given Moses this legal requirement. Anything made of gold, silver, bronze, iron, tin, or lead, that is, all metals that do not burn, must be passed through the fire in order to be made ceremonially pure. These metal objects must then be further purified with the water of purification. But everything that burns must be purified by the water alone. On the seventh day, you must wash your clothes and be purified. Then you may return to the camp." And the Lord said to Moses, "You and Eleazar the priest and the family leaders of each tribe are to make a list of all the plunder taken in battle, including the people and animals. Then divide the plunder into 2 parts and give half to the men who fought in the battle and half to the rest of the people. From the army's portion, first give the Lord his share of the plunder, 1 of every 500 prisoners, and of cattle, donkeys, sheep, and goats. Give this share of the army's half to Eleazar the priest as an offering to the Lord. From the half that belongs to the people of Israel, take 1 of every 50 of the prisoners and of the cattle, donkeys, sheep, goats, and other animals. Give this share to the Levites who are in charge of maintaining the Lord's tabernacle." So Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded Moses. The plunder remaining from everything the fighting men had taken totaled 675,000 sheep and goats, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 virgin girls. Half of the plunder was given to the fighting men. It totaled 337,500 sheep and goats, of which 675 were the Lord's share, 36,000 cattle, of which 72 were the Lord's share, 30,500 donkeys, of which 61 were the Lord's share, and 16,000 virgin girls, of whom 32 were the Lord's share. Moses gave all the Lord's share to Eleazar the priest, just as the Lord had directed him. Half of the plunder belonged to the people of Israel, and Moses separated it from the half belonging to the fighting men. It totaled 337,500 sheep and goats, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 virgin girls. From the half share given to the people, Moses took 1 of every 50 prisoners and animals and gave them to the Levites, who maintained the Lord's tabernacle. All this was done as the Lord had commanded Moses. Yep. Hi, Johnny. It is, there's a lot of numbers in this book. It's a big record-keeping book. Mostly censuses and then conquests as well. So then all the generals and captains came to Moses and said, "We, your servants, have accounted for all the men who went out to battle under our command. Not one of us is missing. So we are presenting items of gold we captured as an offering to the Lord from our share of the plunder: armbands, bracelets, rings, earrings, and necklaces. This will purify our lives before the Lord and make us right with him." So Moses and Eleazar the priest received the gold from all the military commanders, all kinds of jewelry and crafted objects. In all, the gold that the generals and the captains presented as a gift to the Lord weighed about 420 pounds. All the fighting men had taken some of the plunder for themselves. So Moses and Eleazar the priest accepted the gifts from the generals and captains and brought the gold to the tabernacle as a reminder to the Lord that the people of Israel belonged to him. That's what's next. You are correct. The tribes of Reuben and Gad owned vast numbers of livestock, so when they saw that the lands of Jazer and Gilead were ideally suited for their flocks and herds, they came to Moses, Eleazar the priest, and the other leaders of the community. They said, "Notice the towns of Adaroth, Dibon, Jazer, Nimrah, Heshbon, Elealel, Zibmah, Nebo, and Beon. The Lord has conquered this whole area for the community of Israel, and it is ideally suited for all our livestock. If we have found favor with you, please let us have this land as our property instead of giving us land across the Jordan River." "Do you intend to stay here while your brothers go across and do all the fighting?" Moses asked the men of Gad and Reuben. "Why do you want to discourage the rest of the people of Israel from going across to the land the Lord has given them? Your ancestors did the same thing when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land. After they went up to the valley of Eshcol and explored the land, they discouraged the people of Israel from entering the land the Lord was giving them. Then the Lord was very angry with them, and he vowed, 'Of all those I rescued from Egypt, no one who is 20 years old or older will ever see the land I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for they have not obeyed me wholeheartedly.' The only exceptions are Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, son of Nun, for they have wholeheartedly followed the Lord. Hello. Hello there, Take Toucher. The Lord was angry with Israel and made them wander in the wilderness for 40 years until the entire generation that sinned in the Lord's sight had died. But here you are, a brood of sinners doing exactly the same thing. You are making the Lord even angrier with Israel. If you turn away from him like this and he abandons them again in the wilderness, you will be responsible for destroying this entire nation. But they approached Moses and said, "We simply want to build pens for our livestock and fortified towns for our wives and children. Then we will arm ourselves and lead our fellow Israelites into battle until we have brought them safely into their land. Meanwhile, our families will stay in the fortified towns we build here, so they will be safe from any attacks by the local people. We will not return to our homes until all the people of Israel have received their portions of land, but we do not claim any of the land on the other side of the Jordan. We would rather live here on the east side and accept this as our grant of land." Then Moses said, "If you keep your word and arm yourselves for the Lord's battles, and if your troops cross the Jordan and keep fighting until the Lord has driven out his enemies, then you may return when the Lord has conquered the land. You will have fulfilled your duty to the Lord and to the rest of the people of Israel. And the land on the east side of the Jordan will be your property from the Lord. But if you fail to keep your word, then you will have sinned against the Lord, and you may be sure that your sin will find you out. Go ahead and build your towns for your families and pens for your flocks, but do everything you have promised." Then the men of Gad and Reuben replied, "We, your servants, will follow your instructions exactly. Our children, wives, flocks, and cattle will stay here in the towns of Gilead, but all who are able to bear arms will cross over to fight for the Lord, just as you have said." So Moses gave orders to Eleazar the priest, Joshua, son of Nun, and the leaders of the clans of Israel. He said, "The men of Gad and Reuben who are armed for battle must cross the Jordan with you to fight for the Lord. If they do, give them the land of Gilead as their property when the land is conquered. But if they refuse to arm themselves and cross over with you, then they must accept the land with the rest of you in the land of Canaan." The tribes of Gad and Reuben said again, "We are your servants, and we will do as the Lord has commanded. We will cross the Jordan into Canaan fully armed to fight for the Lord, but our property will be here on this side of the Jordan." So Moses assigned the land of the tribes to the tribes of Gad and Reuben, half the tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph. He gave them the territory of King Sihon of the Amorites and the land of King Og of Bashan, the whole land with its cities and surrounding lands. The descendants of Gad built the towns of Dibon, Adaroth, Aror, Athroth, Shaphoan, Jazer, Jogbehah, Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran. These were all fortified towns with pens for their flocks. The descendants of Reuben built towns of Heshbon, Elielel, Kiriathaim, Nebo, Baal Hamon, and Sibmah. They changed the names of some of the towns they conquered and rebuilt. Then the descendants of Machir and the tribe of Manasseh went to Gilead and conquered it, and they drove out the Amorites living there. So Moses gave Gilead to the Machirites, the descendants of Manasseh, and they settled there. The people of Jair, another clan of the tribe of Manasseh, captured many of the towns in Gilead and changed the name of that region to the towns of Jair. Meanwhile, a man named Nobah captured the town of Kenath and its surrounding villages, and he renamed the area Nobah after himself. Whew. Yep, we're reading the stories of the Bible. So we're reading the stories in Numbers right now, and we're skipping over things that are not really stories, but these have been storylines. We got, I think, one more here, so let's continue on. This is the route the Israelites followed as they marched out of Egypt under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. At the Lord's direction, Moses kept a written record of their progress. These are the stages of their march, identified by the different places where they stopped along the way. They set out from the city of Ramses in early spring on the 15th day of the first month, on the morning after the first Passover celebration. The people of Israel left defiantly in full view of all the Egyptians. Meanwhile, the Egyptians were burying all their firstborn sons whom the Lord had killed the night before. The Lord had defeated the gods of Egypt that night with great acts of judgment. After leaving Ramses, the Israelites set up camp at Succoth. Then they left Succoth and camped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. They left Etham and turned back towards Pi-hahiroth, opposite Baal-Savon, and camped near Migdal. Then they left Pi-hahiroth and crossed the Red Sea into the wilderness beyond. Then they traveled for 3 days into the Etham wilderness and camped at Marah. They left Marah and camped at Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees. They left Elim and camped beside the Red Sea. They left the Red Sea and camped in the wilderness of Sin. They left the wilderness of Sin and camped at Dophkah. They left Dophkah and camped at Alush. They left Alush and camped at Rephidim, where there was no water for the people to drink. They left Rephidim and camped in the wilderness of Sinai. They left the wilderness of Sinai and camped at Kibroth Hattava. They left Kibroth Hattava and camped at Hazeroth. They left Hazeroth and camped at Rithmah. They left Rithmah and camped at Ramon Perez. They left Ramon Perez and camped at Libnah. They left Libnah and camped at Rizah. They left Rizah and camped at Kelathath. They left Kelathath and camped at Mount Shepher. They left Mount Shepher and camped at Haradah. They left Haradah and camped at Machaloth. They left Machaloth and camped at Tahath. They left Tahath and camped at Tira. They left Tira and camped at Michka. They left Michka and camped at Hashmanah. They left Hashmanah and camped at Mosereth. They left Mosereth and camped at Ben Jakan. They left Ben Jakan and camped at Hor Haggadad. They left Hor Haggadad and camped at Jotbathah. They left Jotbathah and camped at Abronah. They left Abronah and camped at Ezion-Geber. They left Ezion-Geber and camped at Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin. They left Kadesh and camped at Mount Hor at the border of Edom. While they were there at the foot of Mount Hor, Aaron the priest was directed by the Lord to go up to the mountain, and there he died. This happened in midsummer on the first day of the 5th month of the 40th year after Israel's departure from Egypt. Aaron was 123 years old when he died there on Mount Hor. At the time, the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev in the land of Canaan, heard that the people of Israel were approaching his land. Meanwhile, the Israelites left Mount Hor and camped at Zalamon. Then they left Zalamana and camped at Punan. They left Punan and camped at Oboth. They left Oboth and camped at Ayabiram on the border of Moab. They left Ayabiram and camped at Dibon-Gad. They left Dibon-Gad and camped at Almon Diblathaim. They left Almon Diblathaim and camped in the mountains east of the river near Mount Nebo. They left the mountains east of the river and camped on the plains of Moab beside the Jordan River across from Jericho. Along the Jordan River they camped from Beth Jeshemoth as far as the meadows of Acacia on the plains of Moab. While they were camped near the Jordan River on the plains of Moab, opposite Jericho, the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you cross the Jordan River into the land of Canaan, you must drive out all the people living there. You must destroy all their carved and molten images and demolish all their pagan shrines. Take possession of the land and settle in it, because I have given it to you to occupy. You must distribute the land among the clans by sacred lot and in portion to their size. A larger portion of land will be allotted to each of the larger clans, and a smaller portion will be allotted to each of the smaller clans. The decision of the sacred lot is final. In this way, the portions of the land will be divided among the ancestral tribes. But if you fail to drive out the people who live in the land, those who will remain will be like splinters in your eye and thorns in your side. They will harass you in the land where you live, and I will do to you what I plan to do to them." All right, and then we're just going to gloss over the last few, which are not really stories here. But basically, God is telling Moses, giving more instructions on how to now divide the land, who will get what areas. Okay, and then they give a listing of the leaders of the different tribes. And then they talk about the towns the Israelites are going to, the Levites are going to have, the cities of refuge. And then, as we talked about last time, from the daughters of Zelophehad who asked for land so their father wouldn't be forgotten, basically. Some other people asked some other questions around that and said if they marry into some other tribe, then they have to give up their rights for the land because the land stays among the tribes. Okay, and that is where we finish our reading today and the reading of Numbers. And we get to start Deuteronomy on Sunday. So let's take a drink. Let's catch up with chat. Good to see everyone, by the way. Thanks for being here. Hello there, Mega Manifola. Hello there, Take Toucher. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Hope you guys are well. Have I done much study of the Sabbath? I've done some study of the Sabbath, but I would not say I am any kind of expert at it. Okay, so we have they conquer the kings of Midian, and then two of the tribes look at the land that they're kind of in, and they're herdsmen, shepherds. They have tons of cattle, and they're like, this land is good for these types of animals. Let's just stay here. And they ask for that permission, right? And this is not exactly what's the plan according to what Moses thinks, because they're supposed to kind of all be in this land of the promised land, which is not east of the Jordan River, mostly west of the Jordan River, what we know as the land of Israel. But either way, they ask and they present themselves, and not to not fight or go across and help, but they present themselves that this is the land that they want to take, and given that, they kind of make this exception, so they give out some of the land. So 2.5 tribes have now received portions of their land on the east side of the Jordan River. And then the actual promised land. So this wasn't part of the promised land because God had said, Moses, you don't get to go in. So this was kind of not the promised land, but it was given because they basically made an agreement to do that. And then we get a recounting of all the camping and what happened from the time they left Egypt, where they camped. So just a recap. And we're going to see as we go through Deuteronomy, starting Sunday, a lot of recap. Deuteronomy is the final book in the first 5 books of the Bible, which are known as the Pentateuch. And they make up basically Moses's last passionate plea for the people of Israel. We have just seen over the last 2 days, God has told Moses, you're about to die. And Moses wants to finish well. And I think that's such a great lesson here. Like he doesn't want to just say, okay, my time's up. I'm just going to check out. He knows his time on earth, his time of leading these people is coming to an end, but he wants to see them succeed and take the promised land and become all that God wants them to be. And he has been very obedient and diligent and humble in leading these people and trying to get them to follow God's commands, learn the process of following God, because it's a process to follow God. It's not necessarily what is natural to us by any means. It is not natural to our normal state of humanity of doing whatever we think is right. So we have journeyed now 4 books of the Bible, and one of the main themes that we have seen is God has a plan, and he gives that plan to certain people, and certain people follow it. And he has given these plans to this community of people now, and it's their job to follow it. But I think that this theme still applies just as much to us today. God has plans for us. He's the author of these plans that are for his benefit, for his will to be done. And it's our choice whether we get to follow them or not. And so we have seen some places where people have followed them well. We still seen humanity where they kind of just go on their own journeys and what that looks like. We have seen absolute rebellion to what God's trying to do in his plan. And we've seen the consequences of that rebellion in those people. And we also see the opposite in what he's saying here with these other people, is that they are not doing my will. And that is why you're going to get this promised land as well, because they're just not, they are doing the opposite of what I want. And this is the Old Testament. This is how God set the standard here early on. We've seen that standard all the way from the beginning. God had a plan for the first people, Adam and Eve. He had plans for Noah. He had plans for different people along the way. And they choose sometimes to follow partially, sometimes fully. They sometimes do their own thing, and there's consequences because of those things, sometimes very catastrophic consequences. But Moses is here. This is his final plea as leader of the Israelite people. He's saying, look, as your leader, as somebody who's about to march on into history and be done here, and you're going to go on without me, remember all the things God has done, what he's asked us to do. Don't forget them. Basically, let's remember where we came from. This has been over a 40-year journey, because we had to wait out our first rebellion. Let's make sure that we don't have another 40, 100, 300 years of just wandering because we don't do the right thing. That's his hope for these people, to see the promised land, to have them take it. So he's going to tell them, he's going to recount their stories to them as we go forward from here. And just to see the passion of somebody who is an older person and trying to recall that. And, it's here in America, I don't know if you guys are Americans or not, we're listening, but we have this term for when a president becomes the president that's not going to be president any longer after the election. There's like a season between the election and when they become inaugurated or actually put into place. And this is not I don't want to talk politics, I'm just talking process here. But in that interim season, whether it's because their term is ended and they can't run again, or they've been voted out, or they didn't rerun, or they got the other person won. It's called a lame duck session, right? This is the time of when often not much gets done because they're just kind of coasting. It's kind of like when you're a senior in high school, it's senioritis. You're like, I'm just kind of done. I know I'm going to graduate. Let's just barely do anything. Moses is not like that, and it's a great example to follow. Don't just try to coast through because you feel like it's the end or whatnot. It's not about coasting. It's about continuing to finish the job, to do the job well that you're called to do. And Moses is just a wonderful example of that. So I think that's the place that I want to hang out today, like to make sure that we're not just coasting through, but doing the jobs that we're called to do and that we're in. And that passion is going to just resonate very loud when we get to Deuteronomy. So I'm giving you a little taste of that. Okay. Any other thoughts today? Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Listen to the birds in the river. You still have senioritis? Yeah. I mean, sometimes we do. We get into these lulls, ruts of senioritis or laziness, and like what I do doesn't matter much. But God sees. He sees your effort, and maybe you're looking for affirmation. Maybe you're just like, it doesn't matter. It does matter. That's what I'm saying. It does matter. It matters that we finish well. So let's try to get off of the senioritis lazy bandwagon and take the example. Right. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. So. All right. Thank you for being here. We have finished Numbers. That's good. That book between Leviticus and Numbers. I mean, Leviticus was very short for us because we didn't read much, which was good. But we'll get into Deuteronomy. We're going to finish the impassionate pleas of Moses starting Sunday. And that'll probably be my next stream, I think. So, unless I have an impromptu, which I don't think I have a planned impromptu. So, thank you for being here. I'll see you guys Sunday morning for the beginning of Deuteronomies, and have a wonderful day, wonderful few days, and I will see you again soon.